do you have any advice for managing relationships? Right, like sometimes, like when you say contract, if you're in that job trailer and you're say a younger company, first 10 jobs as a subcontractor, it's a little intimidating to pull out the contract, right? Like, how do you manage the relationship?
It is, and it just goes back, Kevin, to exactly what we just said. And honestly, we're such a relational industry. I think this is why sometimes teams are so hesitant. But here's my experience. That experience that I just gave you about, well, it's clearly in the contract. Like, what are we talking about? Let me go buy you a beer. I think that this is a good business rule, and it's certainly a good rule in construction. In my experience, when I'm across the table talking to somebody, negotiating with somebody, whether it's over a change order or over who's going to do the next, major financing for document crunch or a major customer contract or something like that. When the other party, the counterparty, the person across the table, when they are prepared, when they are taking positions that are grounded in substance, not arbitrary positions, when they're articulating their rationale for why they disagree with something that I've said, human nature is to actually respect, to form respect, to understand, to appreciate that someone is prepared, right? It doesn't mean that you have to fight or be a blowhard. It means that you should respectfully go about operating your business by honoring the deal or talking about why that deal may not work for you, before you get into the deal. And I think just like anything, I mean, it's probably good, like relationship advice for spouses. It's like when you can put things on the table, like transparently, grounded in logic, with good reason, it actually engenders respect from the other parties. So what I would say, and this is what I used to train project managers, just because you're asking for time or money, that doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you somebody, right, and you want to engender that respect from whoever you're working with. So that's my just general. So the advice I would have is don't be unprepared, prepare yourself, and otherwise act in a professional way. Because the minute that you start cutting corners because you want the relationship, just matters to the exclusion of the deal, like that's when you start, creating a dynamic that is more arbitrary in nature, that's more susceptible to things going sideways. And frankly, guess what? When you get to the end of the job, as hopeful and as optimistic as you were at one point in the job, these things tend to always manifest themselves as a bigger deal than they were at the time. Well, you said we couldn't use contingency for this, or you said this wasn't a change order and to just use our contingency, and we're now out of contingency. Well, people tend to forget that happened 6 months ago or a year ago, right? Because money is on the line and people tend to tighten up and pucker up a little bit. And so anyway, my advice would be aware, be professional, be transparent, bring logic to the table. You'll ultimately engender a more respectful dynamic, which will suit you better in the long run, rather than sweeping things under the rug.
So on that, is any advice, like when it comes to, say on both sides, timing with, getting the change orders or having that kind of discussion, and then even like timing of payment from the owner to the contractor, and any advice here on what to do to sort of avoid some of these legal challenges?
Yeah, so it's negotiation 101. Each change order is an opportunity to change the contract. You're much better off dealing with those one at a time rather than dealing with 40 at a time, right? Because once you have 40 at a time, there's a much bigger, corpus from which you have to, deal with. And now you're starting to think about compromising, or if you just dinked and dunked your way to the 40 rightful change orders, you probably be batting a higher percentage of getting those resolved. So that's the first thing. Again, don't sweep things under the rug. Be proactive. Deal with things in real time. Deal with things when they're fresh in everybody's minds. And then, in terms of the timing of payment on those change orders, look, I mean, cash flow is king for our industry, especially for smaller contractors out there. I think you should be very mindful of what your contract says with regard to the timing of payments and things of that nature. And, the commercial reality is people always pay a little bit longer than we all hope. It's the same in the software world, right? We all have that issue. But again, if you have a good agreement in place that you can stand on, like you have the ability to pick up the phone and say, hey, what's going on? Like, this isn't right. Our agreement doesn't say this. We want to be a great partner. Right. But, we need your help. And that's okay. That's okay to do that. Where I
So
think
I
people
think
get out of where I think people get over their skis is, you leave these loose payment terms in your contract, then you don't really have a basis to pick up the phone anymore. You're just saying, "Come on, be a good person."
Right.
That just doesn't carry the same weight.
So I think I hear you saying, although it can be hard to have these conversations for changeovers, the client will respect you, and you shouldn't procrastinate because they're a whole lot easier to do faster and one at a time rather than procrastinating. Wait until the end of the project. You have 10 of them and figure that you'll do this one hard discussion once. Better to have 10 little ones.
You're always going to end up giving more money away if you do it if you wait till the end.